Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm Marie Cato. All the decisions concerning Poland will be taken by Poles. Nothing about us without us. When it comes to peace, all the negotiations should include Ukraine. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. This is Prime Minister Donald Tusk's reaction to the fast-paced developments on the 28-point plan coming out of the US-Russia discussions that will be discussed with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The Polish Prime Minister has taken the opportunity to emphasize that there is no margin for doubt. Poland takes full responsibility for its decisions, as does Ukraine, but a united front is essential.
The fifth commandment: stand with Ukraine unconditionally in the war against Russia. Any conditions put on the support for Ukraine only benefit Russia. Remember, in wartime there are no ifs or buts. It's simple. Either you are for Poland or against it. And when it comes to national security in the face of the Russian threat, either we will be united or we will cease to exist. I can't put it any simpler, and I hope that it has finally sunk in.
On Friday, the Polish military launched an anti-sabotage campaign called Operation Horizon. This comes after 2 acts of railway sabotage took place over the weekend in eastern Poland.
Operation Horizon started in the early hours of Friday. Polish soldiers are monitoring railway lines and transport hubs across the country.
Our objectives are first to support the activities of the security agencies subordinate to the Interior Minister, second to prevent acts of sabotage, and third to restrict freedom of operation and introduce additional unacceptable risks for potential saboteurs.
Several branches of the Polish military are taking part in the large-scale operation, including territorial defense forces, special forces, cyberspace defense forces, as well as engineering and drone forces.
This also includes equipment, drones, helicopters, everything that will make our railways safer.
It's Poland's response to recent acts of sabotage targeting Polish railways, which Polish authorities call Russian state terrorism.
Sabotage acts, inspired and directly organized by the Kremlin for many months, have recently crossed a critical threshold and now amount to state terrorism. Their aim is to endanger people's lives and destabilize the foundations of the Polish state. Internal non-military operations by the armed forces are very much needed in such situations.
Up to 10,000 Polish troops are expected to take part in Operation Horizon.
The 28-point plan includes no NATO troops in Ukraine and the handover of the Donbas region to Russia. Crucial discussions are underway, and President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he will work with the outlined points.
A crunch meeting in Kyiv as US Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll sat down to present President Volodymyr Zelenskyy with a draft peace plan to end the war. Crucially, Donald Trump's 28-point plan would hand Russia the entire Donbas, including territory currently controlled by Kyiv. Zelenskyy later gave a guarded response to the US proposals, saying Ukraine would work with them.
I outlined what is fundamentally important for us, and we agreed that the teams will work on these proposals so that it is real. We will not make harsh statements and are committed to clear, honest work.
Ukraine would also reduce its forces to 600,000 troops from the current level of 900,000. The plan would also require NATO not to expand further east.
We've had a lot of good discussions.
The White House says senior US officials have been working on the proposals for the past month.
Special Envoy Witkoff, Marco Rubio, have been working on a plan quietly for about the last month. They've been engaging with both sides, Russia and Ukraine, equally to understand what these countries would commit to in order to see a lasting and durable peace.
The plan reportedly also provides a full amnesty for any crimes committed during the war. Moscow would see Western sanctions on it lifted, recover most of its frozen assets, and be allowed back into the G8 group. Analysts criticize Trump's apparent acquiescence to President Putin's maximalist demands.
I just think this is the worst negotiation tactics that I've ever seen, where you award that you give one side concessions and don't extract anything out of the other. It's crazy.
Experts say, though, that if Europe firmly backs Ukraine, Trump may rethink his plan.
If Donald Trump discovers that Europe is united against the deal and that Zelenskyy is prepared to say no, then I think, like any experienced deal maker, he will be forced to think again.
That's really important.
The Financial Times reports that the US wants Zelenskyy to sign the deal before next Thursday's Thanksgiving holiday.
It's possible to look at this.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has responded to the 28-point peace plan with caution and willingness to further discuss the framework with the US. The big question regards the territorial concessions that Ukraine would have to make. Is President Zelenskyy willing to give up the Donbas region to secure peace for Ukraine? Oz Katerji, our correspondent in Ukraine, reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy struck a cautious but diplomatic tone about the receipt of that 28-point peace proposal by the United States from representatives of the US military. Now, in his address to the Ukrainian people on Thursday night, President Zelenskyy said that Ukraine needs a real peace and that Ukrainians were willing to work further with the US on these proposals. What is absent is any acknowledgement of those concessions that Ukraine would be expected to make in this proposal. The most key one being the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from the Donetsk region in its entirety, something the Ukrainian government has flat out refused to do in previous rounds of negotiations. It's important to note that over 11 years of war, Russia has not been able to capture these territories inside Donetsk, so the Ukrainians are very, very reluctant to give them up. So while Zelenskyy is striking a more diplomatic tone, the mood here in Kyiv is quite different. Ukrainian independent media, lawmakers not involved in diplomacy, and the people are expressing a very different tone, a much less diplomatic tone, calling these agreements, these concessions unacceptable, calling them a capitulation. It's widely seen here in Ukraine that these proposals largely reward Russia and give Russia much of what it's been asking for since the start of the war, something many Ukrainians would find unacceptable. Another thing that Ukrainians would find unacceptable is limiting the size of their armed forces in exchange for an agreement that Putin would not invade Ukraine again, something that there is no faith here in Ukraine that President Putin can be expected to follow through on any proposals. So a difficult position for the Ukrainians to be in, with the US really pushing this deal on them. But it is being widely understood here that these terms are unfavorable towards the Ukrainians, and President Zelenskyy, even if he were to agree to them, will have a difficult job of getting the approval of the Ukrainian people for such measures. It's Oz Katerji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
The president of Lithuania, Gitanas Nausėda, openly said that the territorial concessions included in the plan equates to the effective capitulation of Ukraine and that it is time for Europe to step in. So far, the Lithuanian president, Gitanas Nausėda, is one of the only EU leaders who has expressed his opinion about this 28-point plan.
We are talking about a possible or potential reduction of Ukrainian armed forces, territorial concessions, and some other decisions which would, of course, mean actual capitulation of Ukraine. And we should use this momentum to express very strong will and strong opinion of European, first of all, European community, that we should find the formula which preserves Ukrainian territorial integrity.
Hybrid warfare and acts of sabotage continue to disrupt day-to-day European life. Thursday evening saw Vilnius Airport shut down for an hour on account of yet another Belarusian balloon. And this time it interfered with the travel plans of two top Lithuanian government officials.
Grounded planes and disoriented passengers, This is what the airport in Lithuania's capital Vilnius looked like on Thursday after authorities decided to close it down due to disruptions from Belarus's weather balloons. And those are not easy to get rid of.
There are means to shoot down balloons, but we must assess the damage those measures might cause. Imagine if we started shooting them down with missiles. Balloons are not military targets. Using military means to bring them down, our launched missiles and the debris falling to the ground would pose a greater threat.
This time around, the balloons also affected the trip of Lithuania's two top officials, Foreign Minister Kęstutis Budrys and EU Commissioner for Defence and Space Andrius Kubilius. They had trouble reaching the airport on their way back from Brussels. The officials called for more sanctions against the Belarusian regime.
Lithuanian airspace was once again disrupted by Lukashenko's balloons. Sanctions is the only language Lukashenko understands. The message from the EU to Lukashenko's regime must be clear. Hybrid attacks against EU member states will not be tolerated and will trigger a direct and painful response, stricter sanctions. The faster they are implemented, the better.
The balloons serve as a means of smuggling black market cigarettes.
When the migration crisis began and the physical barrier was built and a patrol road was installed, it became impossible to quickly toss cigarette boxes across the border, so the smugglers started thinking of new methods. At first, they tried using drones, but those could only carry small quantities, and the drones themselves were quite expensive. Losing them substantially reduced their profit. We believe they then chose an easier method, flying cigarettes using balloons.
After a similar incident last month that prompted the authorities to close airports in Lithuania's two largest cities, Vilnius and Kaunas, they also shut down two border crossings. Now, despite another balloon incursion, Lithuania reopened the border.
The circumstances have changed, and the restrictions on crossing the state border, established for 25 years by Resolution number 733 of the Government of the Republic of Lithuania on 29th of October, regarding the restriction and termination of crossing the state border of the Republic of Lithuania, are no longer needed to ensure domestic security.
Lithuania's border guard service estimates it has managed to intercept a third of all Belarusian balloons. Smugglers are believed to have changed their tactic after losing a lot of contraband-carrying aircraft, and now they fill them with more gas so that they can fly higher and reach further into Lithuanian territory, posing a risk threat to the country's airports.
There are few people who haven't purchased at least one thing off Vinted, and it shows judging by the profits. Vinted's value in 2025 has soared to €8 billion, and now the company is focusing on the fruits of its labor and what to do next.
Vinted, an online marketplace focused on second-hand clothes, is growing like crazy. Last year, the company was valued at €5 billion. This year, it's already €8 billion. The news comes as the company is considering a share sale, which could give early investors a chance to cash out. The company has been working on improving profitability, with last year's profit growing 330% to more than €75 million.
This performance is the result of our hard work to deliver products that bring high value for members at the lowest possible cost.
Squeezed by rising costs of living, consumers are flocking to Vinted.
Do you use Vinted?
Vinted, yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Do you use Vinted a lot?
Maybe not a lot, but sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I would say also from time to time.
We use Vinted.
A lot?
Yes.
And do you use Vinted, sir?
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Do you sell or do you buy?
I'm selling.
My girlfriend uses Vinted a lot, but I personally no.
But the brand recognition is not as universal.
Vinted? Not so much.
Używasz Vinted?
No.
No?
No. I just learn right now. So this app shows where is the Vinted shop.
And even the company's users are surprised by how high it's valued.
Have you heard about the valuation of the company? It's apparently being valued at €9 billion.
No.
The Lithuanian company is also mulling an IPO, but a specific timetable is yet to be revealed. Vinted is one of the unicorns minted in Central and Eastern Europe, with other examples being teleconferencing app Skype and the ride-hailing service Bolt.
And that's all for Midday Report. Thank you so much for being with us, and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.